There's a reason why a business is doing 4 million. If it were doing different things, it would be 20 million. Sometimes I have that conversation with individuals that are looking to buy businesses. That's a whole different market. It's a really interesting market and really great. I meet with a lot of former executives that are now looking for businesses, and sometimes they get introduced to me and they ask me what I think about what kind of business they should buy and aspects of businesses to look for. And, I just remind them that you're not going to get everything on your wish list in a business that's under a $5 million price point. Why? Because if it had your whole wish list, it would be a $25 million business, So you're going to have make some concession.
Lindsey, I'm so excited that you are joining us today on Pressure Tested. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
I know you have a crazy schedule, so I also follow you on social. So you travel the world, and I know you're always busy. So it really doesn't mean a lot to me that you're making time to be here.
Oh no, I'm so happy to be here. I'm thrilled.
Awesome. So I just want to hear kind of your whole. So I've sat down with you one time, and you told me a little bit about your background, and I just want to hear the whole thing. So you went to college to be what, and what do you do now?
Yeah, it was an unconventional path, I would say. So I actually grew up in mergers and acquisitions and business valuation. My father has a business valuation M&A firm. Okay. So grew up working for him, grew up around deals in the business. But as I was going through school, I ended up sort of going down the medical road, and I have a biology degree. So I went to SMU, I have a biology degree, but around my senior year of college, because I had been around so many entrepreneurs and I'd seen people grow businesses in kind of strange areas you would never think of, I decided I wanted to start my own business. And the one sort of connection I had was family in the jewelry business. Okay. So I kind of got in the jewelry business. Very long story short, I did my master's in London. Then I was doing some work in Geneva, Switzerland. And I ended up raising capital in Geneva for my business and growing it there. I was based there for a few years. And I ended up selling that business in 2014. And I spent a little bit of time around then consulting for startups that had gotten funding in Singapore, also a long story, but I lived in Singapore for a few years there. And then I decided, then I did some soul searching and was really trying to figure out, what did I really want to do? And, I just kind of kept coming back to my roots and really wanting to work with entrepreneurs and wanting to do something really meaningful. And M&A really felt like that was the fit. So, moved back to the US a little over 10 years ago, did some extra education, did my licensing, and got into business with my dad, actually. And we built an M&A group, and we actually merged that group with another firm at the beginning of COVID. It was June of 2020. Oh, wow. And that was an interesting exercise in culture clash. So it didn't, I'm sitting here and I work for a different firm now. So It didn't work out super well. It was a really great learning experience. I ended up exiting that and working for another well-established investment bank for a couple years. And then I met the folks at 414 Capital, the team, and they're actually really big in Latin America. And I learned about them wanting to grow in the US and them seeing that as a really big opportunity and needing someone to kind of lead the charge. And I thought that was really interesting, and they have amazing resources, but I could kind of do something entrepreneurial. And so I joined 414 a little over 2 years ago, and that brings us to now.
So you run the office here in Dallas. Are you kind of by yourself?
Well, so there are 3 other people in Dallas. There are 2, and then one starts at the end of the month. And then we have another managing director in Houston. I really kind of was the first and kind of paved the way. And now we're filling in the team, and we're hoping to continue the growth. We've been lucky, we've been successful, and really just hoping to see more of that over the coming years.
That's amazing. I think that, and you glazed over it so humbly, but so you're in a foreign country at like what, 21 years old, raising capital for a business that you were going to start? Like, that's insane.
It was insane. You know, if I knew how hard it would be, and like how just all the things you have to do, and you know this very well, being a business owner, just all the things, I probably wouldn't have done it. But, you know, I'm really grateful that I was kind of that delusional, because I learned so much. I even learned French pretty well because,
yeah. Okay. So you speak French. Do you speak other languages too?
No. Actually, you know, growing up in Texas, you learn Spanish. But like when I learned French, like all the Spanish just left.
Really?
And now I mean, I really can't say a word, really. But, you know, my French, I try to keep up. My son goes to the French school. So, yeah, I try to keep it a little bit. But, you know, I'm conversational. And
so that's amazing. Good for you. That's so cool. So, okay, so you're in Europe. You start this business. Tell me how in the world, so your family's in the jewelry business? And you're, so what exactly did you guys do? Did you just, like, explain it to me?
A lot of, like, import and some exporting, but we would do designs and then have them made abroad, you know, everywhere from China, Thailand, India, a lot of different places, actually, mostly in Asia. And they would send us the finished product, or they would send us a variety of components that we would assemble. Some of those things we could say made in Switzerland because of that.
Right.
And then when I was based in Switzerland, we would sell to stores all over Europe, some in the US, some in Asia, but a lot in Europe.
And you were ready to do something else, so you sold the business.
Yeah.
You went through your own transaction.
Yeah, and I had a banker, and part of what I think about as a banker now is that experience, and you know, what they could have done maybe better.
Oh, yeah.
And having been through it on that side. So it's something, you know, being a really good sort of shepherd for my clients is something that's really important to me, and it's a big part of what I do now.
Yeah. So I mean, it obviously helps that you've been through it on both sides.
For sure.
Okay, so I feel like the average person, especially like somebody in the trades, they really have, okay, let's say that you are in the trades and you start at, you know, 20 years old, you're installing air conditioning, and then one day you start your own company, and then you scale that company and you want to exit. M&A, investment banking, nobody knows what any of this actually means. So, like, what is it that you actually do? And, like, kind of describe the world of M&A to us as if, you know, we don't know anything about it.
Happy to. And it's definitely an area that I find people find a little mysterious for whatever reason. I'm not totally sure. So when I am talking to people about what I do, I usually liken it to real estate.
Okay.
It's not the same thing, but you know, so when you want to sell your house, you usually kind of hire a real estate agent. They'll come in, they'll make your house, like tell you what you need to fix, make it look great. They'll bring in buyers. They'll walk the deal from you wanting to sell all the way to closing the deal. And in a lot of ways, we do that same thing for businesses. However, you know, selling real estate, I'm not to belittle it at all, but it's a sort of a fixed asset that doesn't change a lot.
Right.
When you're working with living, breathing businesses, there are so many things to consider, and it's of course a different buyer universe, and so it's similar but different for sure. But you know, we meet with. So I'm typically working with sellers. There are investment bankers that work with buyers. My firm does work with buyers. I just happen to do more with sellers. So I'm typically working with a family or founder-owned business that's maybe 20 to 200 million in revenue. And so I'm working with those owners and helping them, you know, assess the business, get the business ready for sale, bring in the right professionals if need be for whatever work, you know, might need to be done before going to market. We launch the marketing process. We bring in the buyers. We work with a lot of private equity firms, but we usually include strategic buyers. That's usually a business or corporation in the same field that you're in. And we bring all those to the table. We, hopefully have them bid against each other, get our client best price and terms, and then walk the deal to close.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think when most people think about, I think so many people do this without an investment banker is the other thing, which is like a little scary, right? Like we've been through a couple of M&A transactions, or we've been through a couple of like ones that get really close to the finish line and then failed. And, most of the people that we were dealing with, they were not being supported by anybody else.
No.
So they were just kind of out on this open market, just like looking for somebody to come and pick them up. Yeah. And so, the ones that I would look at, like the financials were a mess. Oh. And, they would think that the business was worth 10x or 7x, and you're like, no. It's like, they didn't believe in recurring revenue. They thought that was a scam. Like, there's just like all these like things that they go through, and it's like it's just amazing that not enough people realize that you need a professional to help you with that.
Yeah, I mean, can you sell a business without an investment banker? Sure. Do you want to? Probably not. For a lot of people, most of their net worth is tied up in this one asset, and it's their business, and you have a one-time sale. And, why would you not hire a professional? If you were going to hire a professional to do anything in your life, why would you not hire them to help you with this? You'll probably make back their fee in a multiple just by getting organized and, having them help you bring in competition and stay organized and do the things you need to do to get across the finish line. As the due diligence process is, it's pretty hard on sellers. It's a lot. It's a lot to go through, and having that extra support, even someone saying this is normal, that's not normal, that kind of guidance is really helpful.
Yeah, because, different people will ask different things of you. And then like, I remember going through a couple of these transactions, and, we would ask, in some we would ask some pretty basic questions, and they don't even have like an internal accounting group, because we're targeting really smaller, like mom and pop businesses. And so it's like, you ask them really basic balance sheet questions and they have no clue.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. I remember it was funny. So we were like working through like target working capital, and like they didn't understand how the balance sheet was going to impact that. And I was like, okay, here's what you're going to do. And it's like, I'm telling them what to do, trying to buy the business. So it's like, you definitely need somebody telling you what to do.
And it's funny you bring up working capital, because that is a complicated subject that takes a lot of business owners, it takes them a little while to get the concept right and down, and having professional guidance with that, and making sure that you're negotiating it properly and that it's really fair is hugely important, I think.
Well, it's kind of crazy, the market. So middle market, 2 to 200 million. The difference in a $2 million company and a $200 million company, that like the professionals that you have at the different levels, like I bet it's wild, some of the stuff that you've seen.
Oh, vast. We usually start working with businesses that are around 20 million.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Because below that, there just tends to be a lack of system and processes. Sure. Even at 20 million, there's usually not a CFO. There's usually not tons of systems and processes.
So we just did 21 at Heating and Cooling. We don't have a CFO.
I believe that.
And I'm thinking through the processes that we don't have that like a company like Utilities does have.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and because that's really like an inflection point for a business. So, do you absolutely need someone full time to be that CFO? Maybe not quite yet. Maybe that's like a fractional position you have, but you're definitely like starting to think about it. And it is starting to become something that's really important to a business of that size.
Yeah, I agree. Like we're going through all of that right now, because really we're 21 million shooting for 31 this year. And so the things that are going to have to we have this huge like backlog of new construction residential work. So we actually have the backlog to kind of support that growth. It's not kind of like we're just sticking a number out there. Like our backlog and the way we burn backlog off, I think that we will hit.
That's incredible.
Million. Yeah, it's wild. But the things that we need to put in place between where we're at today and how we just like I mean, we kind of just accidentally managed to get to 21 million. It's like, so what we have to do between now to get to the 31 is just kind of insane. It's like, that's really, it's like you said, that's the business like inflection point. Like what happens next to get you to the next level?
And probably for you, it is bringing in the right professionals. Yes. It's bringing in the CFO. It's bringing in a really great controller if you don't already have one. Yep. It's building your infrastructure, which is a lot like of people kind of infrastructure.
Yeah, it is for sure. Because you can kind of get by with people that are good enough.
Yeah.
Until you get to that scale. And then they don't really have the wherewithal to manage what's next.
Yeah.
And so people are a big component of it. I agree.
Yeah. And we see that at different sizes of businesses and the growth that they're experiencing. Some people are really good at certain stages of growth, but then they, as the business gets bigger, you kind of need to reassess what your role is and maybe bring in other support to take on new roles or to, make a role more robust.
Yeah, we were just talking about that today. So our goal is always to grow through M&A as well. And so we've only done one M&A transaction so far. We've looked at 3, got really close on 3, but we've only successfully done 1. And we've kind of had to think, because I led those deals, but it's like I'm an operator now. So it's like I don't necessarily know that I can also be the operator and lead the M&A transaction. It's like,
no.
What are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like I can't focus on
those are 2 full-time jobs.
Those are totally different things.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're kind of going through all of those growing pains right now.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
I can understand, and I see it every day. A lot of businesses I work with are at some version of an inflection point, and sometimes that kind of prompts the transaction. They're, maybe at a place where the business is about to go through some sort of growth, or it's going through some sort of growth, and that could be really attractive to an investor. And also maybe the seller is looking to start taking steps backwards. And so that's when a transaction might make sense for a seller, for their personal timing.
Do you think you see, I feel like, on social media and just like everyone will say that we're kind of going through a time where a lot of people like the baby boomers that have had these businesses, because it was just like more attractive than to own a business, and especially like a trades business. We're really seeing this situation where a lot of them are wanting to get out kind of at the same time.
Yeah.
Do you see that at all in what you do, or is that kind of a myth?
So I hear about this silver tsunami all the time. And, honestly, I have not, I don't experience it. I haven't experienced it yet. I work with, I'm thinking about the owners I'm working with now, and they span, around 50 years old to maybe 70 years old. Okay. And they want to transact for different reasons. Some are for growth reasons. And I just haven't seen that, like, clamoring to sell because,
really?
But it could be out there.
Yeah, or it could be completely bullshit. Who knows?
It's like, and it could be certain parts of the market. It might be like slightly below where we work. Maybe there's a little more. There are more businesses
that makes sense.
of that size. Sense. So yeah, it could be that too.
Yeah, because you're at 20 million. I mean, you're an established business at that point.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. Because a lot of these guys, especially, I see this a lot with kind of the older, like the owner that's 55 to 70. Like there was only so much growth that they were comfortable with. And they didn't see how they could grow the business bigger than like the $3-4 million top line that they've gotten to.
Yeah.
And so there's a big difference between the $4 million company and the $20 million company.
For sure. I mean, there's a reason why a business is doing $4 million. If it were doing different things, it would be $20 million.
Right.
And sometimes I have that conversation with individuals that are looking to buy businesses. That's a whole different market. And it's a really interesting market and really great. I meet with a lot of, former executives that are now looking for businesses. And sometimes they get introduced to me and they ask me what I think about what kind of business they should buy and aspects of businesses to look for. And, I just remind them that you're not going to get everything on your wish list in a business that's under, a $5 million price point. Why? Because if if it had your whole wish list, it would be a
Right.
$25 million business, you know? So you're going to have make some concessions.
That's really good. Okay. All right. Well, tell the people what they want to hear. What kind of business do you tell people to buy?
So I can tell you the types of businesses that sell really well.
Okay.
So you mentioned it earlier, but recurring revenue is like the absolute gold in mergers and acquisitions. Recurring revenue, low customer concentration, and strong margins. That combination is really powerful. There are other value drivers, but there is a whole buyer universe that doesn't really care about industry, but wants to see that.
Really?
And they will consider an investment. I mean, a lot of them also want to see a strong management team, a strong second layer of management, low reliance on a single person. There are other value drivers, but recurring revenue and strong margins and low customer concentration, like a highly differentiated customer base, really attractive, which is why
Sure.
HVAC companies, as you know, are in high demand. And so that's an area that trades really, really well. I mean, landscaping, stormwater management, roofing, also businesses where, first of all, businesses that have maybe long-term contracts billed monthly, kind of like some of these businesses we're talking about. Yeah. I mean, those are highly desirable, but also businesses that are sort of mission critical, like HVAC, like roofing. I mean, you can't have a hole in your roof.
How does roofing have recurring revenue?
It's not recurring. It's reoccurring, like where there's like maintenance needed in certain areas of the country, like Texas, like roofs
hailstorms
are going to need work.
Yeah.
You know, there's a certain amount of, I would say maybe a certain amount of reliability that there will be work for you as a roofing.
Yeah, there's
business.
a huge amount of demand. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's funny that roofing businesses are also like so sought after.
Yeah. Well, 8 years ago or so, they weren't. And then, I don't know, it's been the last 4 or 5 years. It started slowly and then it's really picked up. I'm working with a couple currently and very interesting space. They get great multiples and depending on the different aspects of the business. But it's an interesting space. But other businesses like in professional services, think like IT managed services where, you probably pay.
Everybody's on a contract.
Yeah, everyone's on a contract and it's billed monthly.
Yeah.
And it's sticky.
Yeah.
Also maybe like a CPA firm where, you're doing taxes every year. Like those trade really nicely as well. So those kinds of businesses. But there are buyers for kind of every kind of asset. So of course there are buyers that are specific to healthcare assets and I don't do a lot in healthcare. That's not really my space. I do much more in blue collar and industrial services, also professional services, manufacturing, distribution. That's kind of the area that I'm in. So I see more things and I know a little more about that space.
I feel like I don't know anything about manufacturing because it's because I'm a former CFO, I think of everything from an accounting standpoint.
Yeah.
And so then I start thinking about manufacturing, how complicated the accounting is for as things are work in progress. I don't even know. I think it's a work in progress. It's it's so complicated. It's even more complicated than construction is. So
it's different. I mean, they probably think what you do is really complicated. I mean, it's just different. And when we're working with a company in any sector, we usually rely on really great professionals in those sectors. And
that makes sense.
Something we really ask all of our clients to do is it's called a quality of earnings analysis, a Q of E. And it's sort of an audit of your EBITDA, which is your earnings, long story short, yeah. So a Q of E really dives into a company's EBITDA and assesses, how strong it is, how stable it is, a lot of different aspects of EBITDA. And then that report buyers can look at and it can give extra confidence to the buyer when they're buying. I mean, at the end of the day, a buyer is going to do that same report during due diligence. So if the seller does it in advance, they can kind of get ahead of anything that is ultimately going to come out in due diligence.
Because I guess you have so many people that kind of come to you and they have all of this like stuff that they're adjusting EBITDA with, you know, like their salaries, their truck that they're driving, kids' school tuition, like they have all this stuff that they're adding back. And how does that, so, you know, let's say that you're running a $20 million business and you think you have all of these like real things that adjust EBITDA. How much do you really see that play out when they go to market?
We usually do have to adjust some of their adjustments. You know, I've seen people want to add back like health insurance for the company. And it's like, no, post-transaction, we need to have health insurance. You know, we can only add back things that are like one time in nature or will not be expenses post-transaction. So any of the sellers like perks.
Yeah.
But if, for example, and a lot of sellers want to add back all of their salary or, you know, what they're taking home that comes off the P&L. And that is like true and false at the same time. So what we need to know is what is the market rate salary for that position, because if they exit the business, we're going to have to hire someone to do that same job for a certain price. Now, the owner currently might be paying themselves, you know, much more than the market rate. So we can add back that delta.
That makes sense.
But we can't add back the essential salary part that would be needed for a replacement.
So what you're telling me is I need a raise.
Yeah, you definitely need a raise. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we're gonna ask one more loaded question because I'm just picking your knowledge about future M&A transactions. But what do you think of businesses that have a lot of so we'll just play out a scenario. Let's say that you have an HVAC business and this HVAC business has acquired other assets, but they haven't ever like rebranded to one asset. How does a buyer look at that? I mean, now you have the EBITDA, you have the recurring revenue, you have the low customer concentration, but everything's a different brand. How does that play out?
Are those different brands using the same systems and processes, or are they really operating individually?
They're operating off of the same proven process, if you will.
Yeah.
But they're all, you know, different marketing, different brands, maybe even different like geographic areas.
Yeah, you know, I think a buyer, I haven't really seen that specific scenario play out, or actually I take that back. I did work on a transaction last year where there were a few different brands that even did slightly different things, but they all rolled up into kind of one P&L.
Okay.
And, you know, it was an attractive industry to be in. It was a services kind of business, industrial services. And the buyers were, you know, completely fine with it. We didn't really have too much conversation either way about them having different branding. And I don't think the buyers necessarily wanted to change the branding post-transaction. You know, I think they saw that the business worked well. It had been operating like this for 20 plus years. And I think they wanted to build off of it, not necessarily come in and rebrand it.
Okay, you worked on hundreds of deals, thousands of deals probably. Can you look back at one and say, wow, that was such a cool experience, or you just love that deal, you love the deal that you got for the seller? I mean, any of it. Like, what can you think of one transaction? Honestly,
every transaction is so unique and has its own its own journey and story. I will say, last year I worked on a deal in the lake and pond management space, and really enjoyed working with this client, and really enjoyed learning about the business. And we had an exceptionally competitive process. There were a lot of people interested in the business, and it was just such a fun transaction to work on, and to see that level of response from buyers, and to see such a great outcome for the seller was awesome. Really, really cool. It was a great transaction, and definitely sticks out.
like there's got to be some emotion to it. Like these people build these businesses, and like on the other side of these businesses, they become rich. Like they have all the money that they need for their family. I mean, there might even be like generational wealth involved 100%. In this. Like, what is that like to get to see somebody kind of get to the finish line on something like this?
I mean, it's incredible. It's what's really cool about my job. Again, a lot of these people's net worth is tied up in this one asset, and it's their business, and we help them really monetize it and create that liquidity event for them that often does create generational wealth. And it's a really exciting process, but to your point, it's a highly, highly emotional process. There's a lot of the net worth tied up. There's a lot of the personal self-worth that's tied up also in that business. So, when we start going to market and we're, kind of telling these buyers all about the business, and they get to judge it and ask questions about it and probe. And, there are things that come up for sellers with that. And then, someone throws you a lowball offer and it's highly offensive to this thing you built,
sure.
and
I see that.
Or, you get into due diligence and they want to try to retrade you on something that, you think is silly or whatever. Like there are just a lot of emotions that can come up, or you end up in a fight about working capital at the very, very end of the deal. And, your seller is like so stressed from the pending transaction that, they might just be at their wit's end. On this same subject, whenever I meet with a prospect, before they're even a client, I always tell them, I want you to remember this. At some point in the process, you will have at least one nervous breakdown. And, they usually laugh. And then I say, I want you to remember I'm saying this because when it's happening, I'm going to flag it. You're not going to like it. But what I suggest is you take a day, spend some time with your family, don't make any decisions. And then, let's get back together after a couple days and refocus on the goal. We'll get creative. We'll figure it out, and kind of eye on the prize. And it happens like in every single transaction. And I'm so relieved that I tell people that up front, because then I can say like it's happening, because it does happen.
Wow, I bet. And you like have to champion the whole thing. You have to stay cool, calm, and collected through the whole thing. Yeah.
I've seen enough, I've seen deals that just really should have died, that like, I had this one deal in, it was in chemical coatings. Anything that could have gone wrong throughout the transaction, like the financials being wrong, and the CPA went into retirement because he didn't want to answer questions anymore.
What?
And there were like all these violations that were coming up, like environmental violations, and I mean so many things. And our original buyer backed out, and then we had another buyer, when we were in market, so we went back to them. And they ended up doing the deal after some time. And like that deal really made me feel like if that deal can close, any deal can close.
That's funny. That's good to hear. That's great to hear. Yeah, I bet that's a lot to manage and a lot to deal with. And so many different, one of the things that it's funny that we went through just looking at this. So we worked on a deal all summer. We thought it was going to go through, but like outside of the time we spent on due diligence, outside of the time we spent kind of figuring out if this business was right for us, I was like playing therapist with this guy. Like he doesn't listen to my podcast, I'm sure. So I'm comfortable saying this, but I mean, we would be on the phone like for 2 hours, and I would be like talking him off the ledge that this was a good idea. Like it was insane.
Oh yeah. Yeah, 100%.
There's so much babysitting.
He needed a banker, like because I have clients. I've had multiple clients, many clients that will call me like every day at 7:30, and they just want to hear everything's going to be okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be me. I would be calling every day. I'd be like, okay,
yeah,
what'd you find out today?
Yeah.
Like I would be that annoying client because I would just want to know.
But I don't mind it at all. Like it's just part of the territory.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like I get the nerves, and especially in certain parts of the process. Sure. Not the whole process, but there are moments where, like, for a few weeks, you just want to hear like, you still think it's okay. You still think this is going to happen, like this is going to happen, right? And it sounds like that person really needed kind of a sounding board.
Yeah, well, and it's sad because it didn't happen. And okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how many times you've had to kind of champion that something was going to happen and a deal was going to get done, and then it just doesn't. Like, what's that like?
It does happen.
That's got to be tough.
Yeah, it's really tough. And sometimes it's just really unpredictable. But I've had deals fall apart for a number of reasons. It could be that we go under LOI, we're in the due diligence phase, and the company kind of starts underperforming. And so then the buyer wants to renegotiate the price, and the seller doesn't want to renegotiate the price, and then it ends up falling apart.
Yep.
That can happen. It could be kind of in a similar vein, like they lose a customer in the middle of the transaction, and buyer wants to renegotiate price. There's more risk involved now, so they want to account for that, and seller doesn't want to do that. That can happen, or it could just spook a buyer and the buyer could go away. I had a deal really close to closing once, and a background check came back not great. And the buyer walked. They're an institutional investor. They're investing on a lot of these private equity firms. They're investing on behalf of like endowment funds. Sure. They can't be investing with certain types of people with certain backgrounds.
Yeah.
And it kind of didn't matter whether something happened 20 years ago or how minor it was. Like it was mostly because it wasn't disclosed up front.
Sure.
They couldn't like get ahead of it.
Yeah.
And
no, it would spook an entire investment group. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that has happened. I'd say the most common thing I see is a business underperforming, though. They've had a few great years. They want to go to market. Then it starts like they start having a few bad months, and then we're in the process, and then we get to LOIs, and then we're being asked how's the business trending, and we have to say, well, it's not quite on projections, and and then some sellers are totally get it, and they're like, okay, we missed the mark here. We still want to transact. We want an investment partner who can like take us to the next level. Like there are many reasons to do this deal. And there are others that, it's hard stop. Like we're not going to do this.
Yeah, it's a tough world out there for sure. Have you ever had somebody come to you and you look at the business and you just have to be like, hey, sorry, you're not ready for this?
Yeah. I mean, I get introduced to a lot of businesses. And so I don't know what the percentage is, but I work with very few compared to how many I'm introduced to.
Interesting.
But I always try to help the businesses that come to me. So if they aren't ready yet, I will suggest they meet with whatever professional I think is going to take them to the next level. That's great. I will put them in touch with those people. I have a really wide network with amazing professionals that I rely on for all kinds of things. And so I'm very happy to help those people like kind of get to the next phase, and hopefully they will be at a place where I can then really be of service to them. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. You can't take every deal that comes in front of you, and nor would you want to, I'm sure.
No, and it can be for a lot of reasons. It could be I saw a company recently that was doing great, but it had only been established for, I think it was like just around the 2-year mark.
Wow.
And, there's just not a lot of
really
track
business.
Record. Yeah. And, it's just like straight up. And, I that's just really tough.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
you need to know how it's going to do over time.
Buyers want to see a little bit more of a track record. Most buyers.
That makes sense.
There might be a buyer out there that's fine with it, but not a lot of the buyers I see.
Yeah.
It could be that a business has had really like wild swings in their financials.
Oh, yeah.
That can be really difficult to explain. It's not impossible to overcome that. There are a lot of groups that really pride themselves on being operational, and I mean investment groups that pride themselves on being operational and really being able to boost performance. So sometimes they look for assets like that. But in general, that makes a process hard to run. There are those kind of reasons, or financials have kind of like been trending lower and lower. That's another reason.
So it's better to If you're looking at a deal, it's better to, because I think it takes a business about 5 years to really make money. That's that's just what I think.
For sure.
That's been my experience with the different companies that I've worked for. And so, you have those really like shaky first years where it does not look good and no one's interested. But then if you can prove or you can show a trajectory of slowly climbing out of that, you're saying that would be a lot better than having a good year and a bad year. And a good year, so you want to see the trend that things are continually improving.
Yes. Really, in my opinion, the ideal, graph looks like slowly up and to the right,
Yeah, that's
so
right.
we can tell like a really great story.
Yes.
There's a strong narrative there. We don't have to be like, oh yeah, this happened that year and then that happened this year, but don't worry, it's all good. Like that's hard. But up and to the right, even if it's
that's
slow,
the way it needs to look.
We love that.
I love that too. That's funny. Yeah, I do feel like there are a lot of people out there that I was just sitting with somebody the other day and they were talking about what they do. I think that they worked at a family office and they said that they really like to invest in companies that they feel like they can put the people in, the operational people in, to really take it from being like mid-level performance to like that next level.
Yes.
And that makes sense. Because I guess investors like that are going to be able to see that better than the average operator. Absolutely.
And there are some groups where they really look for those specific kinds of opportunities where a business might be like just kind of underperforming. Maybe it has a foothold in a market, but just kind of bumping along.
Yeah.
And then there are many, many investors that don't want to be operational at all. They want to know that there's a strong second layer of management if the owners are looking to exit, and they want to know that the business is in safe hands and can continue to operate and grow.
How many of your deals do you think go to some sort of investment group that's actually going to hold the asset long term? And how many of them do you think go to like a private equity play where they're just going to roll it up and try to sell it for profit in however many years?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably about 50-50, and I'll tell you why. Okay. I'd say about half the time our businesses are being sold to strategic buyers. So it might be a publicly traded company that is, adding on, and they're going to integrate, and that business is never going to be, anything else ever again. It's going to be part of this larger entity.
Right.
But if you're talking about like financial sponsors that are going to hold it for long term, very rare. There are family offices. There are a few funds out there that are kind of for long-term holds. But, a lot of investors, a 10-year lockup is a long time. They want to see their money back in about 10 years.
That makes sense.
So a lot of those funds are sort of in a place where they really need to transact in that 5-year mark. Once they acquire an asset, they're kind of on a timeline.
Yeah, we see that a lot in the HVAC space because private equity seems to be very hot and heavy in HVAC. And so, the first company I ever worked for, great company, they sold to private equity a few years ago. And within, I think, 3 years, that private equity group sold, and then they sold again to Service Experts. And just the company itself really kind of suffered. The people, there was always somebody to replace the next person because they were getting bought out, and company culture kind of died. And that's not to say that all those situations happen like that. I just think in HVAC, people are almost scared of that now. They have this like idea that if PE comes in, it's just going to kind of gobble it up and blow it up a little bit.
Yeah, I will say HVAC has been inundated by private equity. I kind of joke with my M&A friends, like, are you even a private equity firm if you don't own an HVAC company? That's the real question. I do all these deal source events all over the country. So it's almost like speed dating where all the investment bankers have a table and every 20 minutes a new private equity firm comes by. Yeah, they give us their one pager. We talk about what's in my pipeline. They talk about what they're looking at.
Interesting.
And so we are able to connect on deals. So I do those all year. And it's funny, on their one pagers, almost all of them have an HVAC company.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. I bet you get solicited like all the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I tell them all the same thing. No. Yeah. We're not ready. We're not ready.
Yeah.
If you saw the financials, you'd understand. Okay, let me ask you this. Why do you think that you're the only female investment banker I know? maybe there are more. Why do you think I feel like I'm pretty well connected in the financial world in DFW, and you were the only female investment banker I know. So
what's up with that?
Wow, what's up with that?
I am also one of very few. I'm trying to even think of like one other female investment banker in Dallas that I, is in the middle market, and I'm not coming up with anyone. I think it's a few things. I think the career path in investment banking is kind of intense and might not appeal to some women. I don't know. There are plenty of careers that are super intense that women are in. I think it's not marketed to women.
Okay, there we go.
So I think it's a profession that's not really marketed to women. I'm not quite sure why. And then, the first few years are brutal at the analyst level.
I bet.
But, that's like being an attorney or a med student or. Or
even like a CPA that's just entering a tax. I mean, you're getting the grunt work.
Yes. So, I'm just thinking out loud. So it's probably a marketing problem. But I love working with younger women that are coming up in investment banking or in finance and really encourage them to think about investment banking. My firm actually has quite a few women, which is really cool. I've never worked at a firm that's had more than like one other female.
That's cool.
So yeah, it's very cool.
Well, I think that when I really think about what you do, I just think that there's a lot of female bankers that I know that would be really great at what you do, so it's just like, it's interesting to me. But I also think that there's a lot of work to get to where you are, and family situations don't always line up to that. There's a lot of reasons.
Absolutely. There are a lot of reasons, and it's it's kind of a weird niche of a profession to get into as well. Like whether you're female or male, it is kind of a funny place to end up, especially, it's one thing to go kind of into the bulge bracket banks and get recruited out of college, but to be a middle market banker, it's kind of niche-y.
Yeah. I agree with that. I feel like we have a lot of like mutual friends in the banking world around DFW. Something that I always just think is so tough on bankers, because I've seen it so many times, and I'm sure you deal with this too, but sometimes owners are ruthless. Like, they can be downright, I'm not going to drop an F-bomb, but mean.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they will let some stuff fly, and you're like, oh my gosh, is this person like shrinking at their desk wherever they're receiving this email? Like,
yes.
It can be, it's not for the faint of heart.
No. And, I would say earlier in my career, I had a lot more of those types of clients. I'm a little more picky now that I can be a little picky. And you can't always tell how someone's going to be under stress, but you can kind of tell just generally, you can get a sense for a person. And at the end of the day, I also like, I get it.
Yeah.
When they're freaking out, it's usually something that I know is going to be totally fine.
That's good.
And everything is figure outable. So we just have to figure it out. And luckily I don't deal with that too much. I mean, I've seen some things, but no, I mean, I'm really lucky. I work with some amazing owners, and in the last few years, it's just been like such a pleasure, really.
That's amazing. So where do you go from here? What do you want to achieve?
That's a really good question. Honestly, I love what I do. What I really want to see happen is for 414 Capital's U.S. presence to grow.
Okay.
So, we've added just in the last year to Dallas, and, we're looking for office space now. A lot of the team is based in Mexico City, actually. So all of my deal teams get staffed out of Mexico City. So all of my deals have like 3 or 4 bankers on them, and they're amazing. Down there, they're working on, oftentimes much bigger deals, public company deals, and I get those same resources for my middle market deals.
That's amazing.
Which is really cool.
Great.
Yeah. And I would just like to see our office and our presence grow in the U.S. And we're kind of doing it, but, I'd like to continue to see that. So that's kind of what's on my radar.
That's amazing. Lindsey, thank you so much for joining me today. This was so great.
Thank you for having me.